Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation. And my guest today is Marc de Bruin. He is a registered counselor, certified life coach, master NLP practitioner, AusIDentities, personality facilitator, and mindfulness integrated CBT practitioner. This is my brief introduction to Marc, but the full bio will be at the end and then also on the podcast notes. I didn't say the welcome before. I never do. In a sense, I almost feel like it's almost like this flow in alignment when I have people who have already said yes to meeting me on this sacred space. So I usually don't say, oh, welcome to the show. I know a lot of people do that. I was trying to copy that, and then I said, wait a minute, that doesn't feel authentic to me. But thank you so much for being here, for saying yes again to this sacred meeting.
Pleasure.
But the first question that I always ask everyone, Marc, you probably already, already know this. Hopefully not. How would you introduce yourself? Who is Marc in this very moment?
Yeah, you know what? That's a tough one, Valeria. I think I'm so many things, and I don't mean that in a funny way. But it's who am I? The person I identify most with, I think, is strangely enough the ex-lawyer who has become a counselor. So it's the person who's always on the lookout for something, but really wants to help people, and initially did that in law, and now does that in mental health. So I think it's how do I identify? I think the helper. Marc is the helper who just wants the best for people and wants to make the world a better place, even though he's also very much a realist and knows that you can't really bend iron with bare hands. But helping people is what I am, I think. So if you want to summarize, it's like, well, who am I? I'm a helper. I want to help people. That's what I am.
Yeah. I love that. And that also kind of reflects your message. I love your website. Is simplifylife.com.au. So
simplifying life.
Right? Simplifylife.com.au. So that caught my attention immediately as your message when I saw that. And then your website says, empower yourself through simplicity. So when you say I'm a helper, that's very simple. It sounds very simple in a complex world, right? In a complex realm. So I have to go back to something that you said. I'm very much in the moment, in the sense of very spontaneous. So I usually engage with cause my attention. So you said something about the world, making the world a better place, and that's being practical in a sense, almost like realistic. You feel like it's not something that we can do. Is that? Did I understand that correctly? And how, if that's right, why do you feel that way? Why do there's so much suffering, and most of us cannot help?
I think. Look. Oh man, this interview should be an hour and a half at least, I think, or 2 hours, and I could get really deep into it. I think, when you come to this place, called Earth, we're all born here, we're all walking around now. It's like there's lots of stuff going on, and I'm definitely aware of good stuff going on as well, but there's a lot of, I call it bad stuff or unwanted stuff going on too. And that's just the nature of this three-dimensional reality, I think.
Right.
And sometimes, I've felt I've been put on this planet, and I really feel this way to kind of lift up the spirits a little bit more. And I don't mean that in a woo-woo kind of fashion, but it's like, well, wherever I can, I'm trying to make a difference and help people see, not that it's all great and all good, because it definitely isn't. But if people go through their individual turmoil, if they're experiencing something, or even if on a slightly broader scale, if a community is suffering or whatever, and I can make somewhat of a difference in that field or to that person, how cool is that? Right. I think that's just cool. And I definitely believe that, I'm a simplistic thinker in many ways, even though I'm an academic, but it's like, and I'm not religious, although I was raised a Catholic. But it's this idea of, treat others like you want to be treated. And I know that if I treat other people well, that's my firm belief that also comes back to me in some way, shape or form. People are expressions of me in a way. So if I treat them well, then hopefully that comes back to me and I get treated well too. And, there's no science behind that because I can't prove it, but it's the evidence so far in my life has been pretty optimistic that if I keep helping people, then life helps me and people help me. And that's just a really good feeling. It's like you contribute to something, whether it's one person or a community or maybe a country or whatever it is that you can do, is with as much power or influence as you have, you help. And helping just feels good. And that's something I've done as a kid without really thinking about it. It's just one of those pervasive elements in my life. I just improve things, make things better, make people happy in a way, in a simplistic way. I like that. That kind of keeps me going. I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for the prestige. I'm not in it for the accolades. It's like, at the end of the day, if I have a client or have a day full of clients and a few of them walk away saying, man, that was really cool, that really helped, then my day was great. Yeah, that just feels good.
Right. Oh, I love that observation coming from your own experience, right? That's something that you experience on a day-to-day basis. And it feels to me, Mark, that expectation of life giving it back to you, it's pretty instantaneous, isn't it? For me, has been when I'm kind to others, to myself, and then others, it kind of makes the mind and my heart kind of almost like come in alignment immediately. And then if that feel good kind of sensation, I guess it's coming from that alignment of heart and mind. And then it seems almost like the soul is saying yes to it. And then immediately I feel so much better. And then when I say something, perhaps that some people don't want to hear, I'm usually very kind to everyone, but very truthful too and direct. So I learned to be kind and truthful. That kind of, it's helpful when you do it that way. But some people are not ready, especially the people close to you, like my family members. So when I try that and it doesn't work, they still kind of, they become upset and all that. And then I immediately I feel like almost like a disconnection, but I know it's not from my heart, in my mind, in my heart. I think it's the disconnection that is the pain of disconnection, like trying to connect with others at the same level and not being able to, like they are disconnected from their own hearts and soul and minds, and then you can't, and then it feels. It's just the sadness kind of sets in, but that has nothing to do with treating anybody with unkindness, because we need to be truthful, right? So talk to me a little bit about that. How do we go about when it comes, because that's something that I dance a lot around, being truthful, direct, but also kind. But it doesn't work every single time.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you. I think I'm kind of genetically cursed or blessed, maybe. I don't know. Being a Dutchman, our culture, and I speak very broadly, obviously, but the Dutch culture is very direct to the point of sometimes being seen as even arrogant or blunt. And I go like, meh, I kind of grew up with that. We call a spade a spade. It is what it is. And if we don't like it, we say it. But for Dutch people, that's actually a sign of respect. It's like, I'm not fluffing around. I'm just telling you as it is. And I expect you to do the same with me. It's like you just... If I do something stupid, tell me, because then I can repair it. So I grew up that way already in terms of, saying it like it is. And my mum was very much, who's my main upbringer, if you will, my main parent. She was definitely like that. Yeah. And I like it. So that cultural heritage that I have, I like. And I bring that back in my work as well. In Australia, there's a new modality that's been researched by a university here in Melbourne, I believe, and they call it no bullshit therapy. Literally,
I like
excuse my English.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. I resonate to that. No bullshit therapy. Like, yep, that sits well with me.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you treat people like you want to be treated, well, I treat them directly because I don't like fluffing around and being polite for the sake of being polite, even though you mean something different.
Yeah. Yeah.
You also want to make sure you keep compassion in mind and don't just stomp on people's toes. Because that's not the point. It's not the point to be nearly insulting by being direct. You want to make sure you're direct, but also friendly.
Right.
And I think that's that part of, hey, am I allowed to hold this mirror in front of you?
Right.
Where I see something and I hold this mirror in front of you. So can you look at yourself in terms of what I'm seeing? And let's have a chat about that so that you can potentially improve based on what I'm seeing.
Right.
And I think the toughest one, be kind to everyone is a good thing. But the toughest one is for me with people that strongly disagree or that actually have something against me, to then still apply that. That's tough. And I sometimes have it with clients, who strongly disagree with what I'm saying, and that's their right. And sometimes it gets really tense, and then I get a bit self-conscious. But it's like, well, I can't operate any other way. It's like we need to take some responsibility for ourselves. But here am I. You come to me and pay me money to get my services. You professionally ask me to hold that mirror in front of you.
Right.
And I don't hold that mirror up in front of you to be blunt or to be impolite.
Right.
But I will be direct, and I will be honest, and then let's have a chat about that. So it's about that mutual respect, but also saying, hey, here's something I see. What do you think about that? And can we address that? So it's a very fine line between being considered blunt, arrogant, impolite, a bit of an asshole, or the person says, wow, okay, you're straightforward, you're very direct, you don't muck around, do you? And go like, no, I don't, but I mean well. I mean really well with that. And that's a fine balance. And sometimes I get it wrong and then have to apologize, but I couldn't do it any other way.
Right.
I couldn't do it any other way. It's just, I operate that way. And I like operating that way, so I don't feel a need to change that. I'd rather apologize than change my ways because it's who I am.
Yes. I feel absolutely the same way. And I don't know, for women it's perhaps more expected to be nice. We are expected to be kinder, always smile, that, be nice. And that's the thing. And then when we somebody like me who are very much in touch with my inner self, my inner world, and I know what I am beyond of who I am. So it's so much more challenging, navigating the minds around me. And and just kind of put this more into context. I really love the message of A Course in Miracles, and that's something that I came across, of course, because you mentioned that this has been an influence for you. And I'm a student of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, which is a Hindu philosophy that, you're familiar with that? It's quite, we speak of being direct and very science and spirituality coming together. They are highly sophisticated in the way that they explain how reality works, and we cannot really trust experience. Basically, it's hard because most of us have experience to base our truth on. This is what I am, this body, what I'm thinking, my memories, and all that. So Vedanta kind of breaks that down completely and just tells you that no, you none of it, not the body, not the mind. So A Course in Miracles, I'm very familiar with. It's more like the path of forgiveness and love and fear. But in the end, they do speak a lot about what reality is. So, how illusory this physical world is. So talk to me about, how do you bring these two elements together? I know science, spirituality as a therapist.
Yes. Yeah, no, I know what you were going to ask there. It's like, that's been my quest for a long time, I think. Like we talked before the interview started, it's like I grew up in a household where my mum was really into all sorts of metaphysical, parapsychology, a bit woo-woo, all sorts of stuff. Life before death, life after death, reincarnation, you mentioned it, all that stuff. And she had tons of books on she had a real library of that stuff. And she had the Seth books in there as well by Jane Roberts, and which I loved as well. I was like, man, I love those books. Anyway, that's I got kind of spoon-fed with that stuff and really picked up on that. On the other side, there's also the intellectual in me that says, well, where's the proof? Where's the evidence for this? So for years, even as a counsellor, when I was already in Australia and practicing as a counsellor, I was looking for this bridge between what I believe to be true, but personally for me, my spiritual beliefs and what I think it's all about.
Right.
But then also some level of, well, what does the science say about that? How can you work with that with people who might have different belief systems, and how can you integrate those things? And I
Right.
couldn't find it. For years, I couldn't find it. Either you were very esoteric, spiritual, and in that world and doing your things, and that's great, or you were more an academic looking at evidence-based science, and we're working in that one, which is great too. But I was always looking for that bridge. I think I've always been looking for that bridge. And then years ago, in 2014, 2013, I found this, and I really credit this guy for this. This mindfulness integrated cognitive behavioral therapy, MICBT, developed by an Australian or Frenchman actually, but he lives in Australia in Tasmania, called Bruin. And it integrated Buddhist principles with fairly hardcore Western cognitive behavioral science, and it bridged it. It just absolutely bridged it. And I went, oh my gosh, I found it. This is what I think it's all about, where you can combine Eastern wisdom with Western science and bring it together in a package that's now an evidence-based package. So I was really happy to follow that course and do a postgrad in that. And that really kind of struck it together. Not that I'm a Buddhist, but I really like those principles. And then I started to see that in books like A Course in Miracles and in books like the Seth books and in other teachings that I've learned of, Michael Singer is an example, but even people like, Wayne Dyer and, who else? Neale Donald Walsch. And you mentioned all those people. They all had elements of that bridging in there. Yeah, and I think that's something I integrate in my practice now. It's like, hey, I don't necessarily use that woo-woo stuff, but if a client is willing to go there and look a little bit deeper, then we can definitely go there, because I think with some Western-based, evidence-based science, we can integrate those more what you call transpersonal approaches in counseling work. And that's what I tend to do then. And my latest favorite is in a modality called acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT by Steve Hayes and a couple other people, that really looks at that transpersonal stuff as well. It's like, hey, there's a transcendent element of ourselves, something that's higher than just what you see, this bag of flesh and bones.
Right.
And who are you? What are your values? What are you looking at? What is your worldview? And that becomes really interesting. So it is bridgeable. But it's sometimes really tough, because some people are in camps and they're either really spiritual and don't want to look at reality, and some people are realistic but don't want to look at the higher stuff. And I think, the clientele that I seem to attract does want to look at that, or at least is open to looking at that, even if they don't go like, I don't know what A Course in Miracles is and I don't want to read that. It's like, no, but would you mind hearing about the principles behind it? And they go, yeah, sure, as long as we can make that really practical. So I think that's how at least in my book, have combined this spirituality and really realistic stuff. It's like, hey, let's look at some principles, but also make it really practical, because it has to work. If it doesn't work in your life, it's useless. Then we might as well not look at that. So that's, but I have to credit Bruno in many ways with setting me on that path of, there is a bridge between Western-based, evidence-based psychological science and this more Eastern, but even non-Eastern spiritual approaches. And we can use that. And people are more and more open to it, I think, which I find really cool, because that just makes my heart sing. It's awesome.
I know. Yeah, me too. And you said something, you said a lot there to unpack. But one of the things that you said, that some people want to look at just one side of it, right? It was my case too, doing a lot of spiritual bypassing. So you can't really address emotional problems with spiritual solutions. I noticed that. I tried to do that and it didn't work. So how would it be? Can you give us an example, Marc? Let's say somebody going through a lot of anxiety and to the point of kind of getting in the way of their relationships and their work. How would you apply this intersection of science and spirituality?
Yeah, well, big asterisk is it depends whether the person wants to go there. So if they want to go there, let's assume that they do.
Yeah.
Then it comes from this, and I really like this acceptance and commitment framework that says, well, we have to look at these emotions as such. What is it that you're experiencing, and how that is embodied, because our bodies often translate that into either headaches or stomach aches or whatever, or joint problem, whatever. So it translates that, and we feel that. But that also leads to a whole bunch of thoughts and ramblings of the mind, which then links in with your self-story about who you think you are. And once we can start to unpack those, so the emotions you feel, the way the body translates that, all the ramblings that go on between these two ears, about all that, and then how you put that together in a story of yourself. It's like, see, that always happens to me. It's like, I've always been anxious, or I've been anxious. So we sew together a story of self.
Right.
Then you can start to look at those more transpersonal approaches that say, well, what if we start to become present with all that? The feelings you feel in your body and in your heart, the thoughts that are racing in your mind, the identity that you seem to hang up on that. What if we stop time in a way and become present with all that? Then we can start to look at what is really important in your life. What are your values?
Yeah.
And do you want to keep sharing this story? Like, do you like this story of I've always been anxious? Or do you actually want to kind of unglue yourself from that story, rip the Velcro off? Because then we can start to say, well, is there a way for you to start taking meaningful action in a different direction?
Yeah.
Taking all that stuff with you for a while. You don't have to get rid of it, but to start walking into a different direction. Because if you start walking in a different direction based on a new chosen path, there's a fair chance that all that stuff will come along, but it'll start to get less important because you're not repeating the same old story.
Right.
There's way more to it, obviously, but that's where you can start to say, hey, values, what's important to you? What is your worldview? What do you think about people? What do you think about the world? What do you think about yourself?
Yeah.
Can we become present with all that? Put that in the context of your perceived problems, and then maybe chart a different course. So let's just change course. So, and that's when that spiritual stuff becomes important. It's like, well, do you believe in some sort of higher organizing design, or do you believe in someone or something that sits on top of it and actually is very benevolent, actually means really well, and it's not out there to hurt you? Because then you can start looking at it. How do I link this in with some higher aspect of myself? I've been depressed when I was young and never diagnosed, but I think I would have had clinical depression. And the thing that always got me through was there must be some sort of purpose to me going through this, because otherwise, what's the point? It's like, and I've always had this.
Yeah.
There is a lesson in this. That's always been my philosophy.
Yeah.
And I've always just been looking for that lesson. And when I got that lesson and go like, okay, I can do this. I can now see. I can put this in perspective. So you can go with people who are really facing real tough problems, and I have clients like that.
Yeah.
And then put it in slightly bigger context, and that's that spiritual stuff if they're willing to go there.
Right.
And with that, start charting a different course. But it's easier said than done. But it's a really meaningful and I think really valuable process to go through with people, especially once you see their eyes open up and go, oh, okay, yeah, right. Oh, wow, yeah. I don't have to hold on to that story of 20 years ago. I was like, no, you don't have to.
Yeah.
But our minds have the tendency to do that because they constantly link past and future.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, well, I was that way, so therefore I will be that way.
Right.
That's not automatic. That's not an automatic thing, but many people believe that. We can change. So that's cool. That's how I combine that evidence-based stuff, which definitely plays a big role. And I teach at the local uni as well, and that's very much evidence-based. But you can put it in a bigger context if people are willing to go there and say, how does that fit? Yeah, and even something like A Course in Miracles, I read a university-based paper on that, who's someone who graduated his master's of counselling on looking at A Course in Miracles and see if it could actually be seen as an evidence-based approach. And he came to some really cool conclusions about it. He said, sure, the text itself is a bit odd, but yes, if you look at the content of it and the spirit of it, you could see it as an evidence-based approach, because as long as people make improvements based on that, it works. And that's always been the question for me as well. Does this work? Does this create lasting changes in people? If so, then it's valuable. And then I'll keep using it. If it doesn't, then I'll stop using it because it's useless. It's not some sort of fancy idea. It has to have practical results. Otherwise, it's useless.
Right. It has to be, practical applications.
Yep.
I absolutely agree. And I think about a lot of times, the idea of information, knowledge, and wisdom. So to me, like wisdom being the application of knowledge. Once you know something and then you just apply it. And that becomes science. That's been my case, always been the scientist of my own life. Kind of always, let me try this and see what happens.
Yeah.
One of the, do you recommend meditation to your?
I do, but that's a personal preference. I also have clients that go like, I don't want to do that stuff. For me, it's worked well. Always has worked well. It suits my personality, but for some people, it's not their thing. On the other hand, meditation in its traditional definition of sitting still and focusing on something, that just doesn't work for certain types of people. People with neurodivergent people, ADHD, ASD, they can't sit still. They just can't do it.
Right.
But they could do a meditation while walking. So they can do a walking meditation, or they can do meditation listening really intently to a piece of music or something else. So there's other ways of doing meditation that still has a very similar neurological response that still helps. But I like it. I like meditation because it suits my personality style. So I still practice meditation in the more formal definition, more the Vipassana way. Just sitting still and focusing on breath or body scanning. But that's because I like it.
Yeah,
it's not that I recommend people do it, because some people go, never ask me to do that anymore, ever. It's like, okay, that's all right.
It's quite powerful if you can do it right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have, one of my active meditations, because I'm a student of Vedanta, so it's basically what Michael Singer says on The Untethered Soul, the message there, that basically the soul is free, that you're free already. You are what you're looking for. So, but there's something about freedom, that freedom, which is the foundation of what we are, and then the experience of the body-mind. That's very different. As now it goes again back to science, experience and spirituality. So how do we bring that together? For me has been kind of coming to terms with consciousness itself, like the soul per se. Well, the soul is a little bit different than consciousness. According to Vedanta, it's different. So the consciousness has no agenda, so it's free. It doesn't make any decisions, not try anything. It's basically unconditioned presence of being. So you're not really attached to anything. But then what part of us kind of attached to things? And that's what I'm very compassionate about, because one of the things that I'm very, 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 very truly interested in is relationships. It's connection with other people in nature and animals. And so it's really a tough one, to kind of try to create that distance. I want to feel the feelings. And if the deeper I go when it comes to that kind of experience of connection, the possibility of suffering, it's there too, of deep suffering. So how do you dance that dance yourself?
Once you find the answer, please write a book about it and I'll become your student. And then, all jokes aside, I think that's our journey. I think for most people, and some people will do that journey very unconsciously, others will do it very consciously. I'm very aware of the fact that I live in a bag of flesh and bones. I sometimes disrespectfully call it the machine. This is a machine that I operate, and I use it to drive myself through the world. It's my vehicle, and to a very high degree, it has its own processes that I have no influence over, or very little influence over. I have some influence over it, but to a very high degree, it does what it does. So to be caught in that as a soul or as a level of consciousness means that I also have to accept the fact that certain things are completely beyond my control, and I just have to accept them. I see that in certain clients. Some people just have a have a tendency or have a, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, they're more prone, for instance, to feeling depression or anxiety. And you know what? That's just bad luck. Yeah, it's just that they either have been genetically programmed or for some reason their own DNA is just that way wired. And you can say, oh no, I'm a soul, I'm consciousness, I'm free. Yeah, but your body is not doing that. Hey, it's just not expressing that. And some people are physically not that strong, so they have certain physical ailments that they have to deal with, or their immune system's just not being that strong, or something else. It could be quite bad diseases or grave diseases. So you always have to take this vehicle into account that has its own operating system that runs a certain way that you kind of try to steer through life. And sure, I do believe, with the Michael Singers in the world and many other teachers that say, I am free. It's like, if I can be free and can accept whatever my body and my mind is doing, even if it's making me feel really bad, then I can still say, hey, but I'm the observer of that. I'm not affected by what's happening there. Right. But boy, if I feel anxious or if I feel depressed, I feel it, man. I definitely feel it. I think the journey is to more and more start to subtly remove yourself from that and go like, no, this is not me. The big capital I. The observer of it all is not the person who's depressed, is not the person who feels anxious. My body is feeling anxious. My mind is racing. I might be sweating. I might be shaking. I might be crying. I might do all sorts of things, but that is not me. It's like, my body is not me. My thoughts are not me. My emotions are not me, but I'm definitely experiencing them. And in that bag of flesh and bones, that can be a pretty horrible experience at times.
Right.
And I think the separation in a way is to say, it is not me. This is not me. And once that starts to become a little bit more truthful, once you start to get a little bit more in contact with that you say, no, this is not me. That's when a little bit of freedom starts opening up. That's how I've experienced it. But I still feel, to a very high degree, Valerie, I still very much feel a prisoner of my body. It's like, I don't mind it. It's okay. It's a good machine. It does its thing.
I like that.
But I don't like some of its processes. And I don't like some of its expressions. Like, I get headaches fairly often and go like, well, is there an emotional reason behind that? Well, maybe. But maybe that's just what my body is. And I don't like that. So, the free consciousness, the free spirit in there still goes like, this is just not fun. And if I feel very uncertain about the future or feel very afraid for the world or whatever is going on, I go like, seriously, mind, can you just get off that? Because I'm not enjoying myself at the moment. And then to still feel that slight separation between what my mind is doing, like, oh my God, we're all going to shit. This is all going wrong. And then the more soul part of me saying, we're okay. It's okay. We're all right. You sometimes feel like a split personality, and it sometimes actually feels that way. And that's what I see in clients as well, where sometimes they're so caught up in their bodily, mindly, emotional experience that it's really hard to separate your free self from that, because it seems so pervasive. It seems so all-encompassing, because my eyes and my ears and my mouth and my nose and my touch organs are all giving me these signals that life is bad.
Right.
And then you can't say, oh, no, you're still free inside. Don't worry.
Right.
That's very disrespectful. It's because it is an experience. So, do you like the vehicle? I think it's coming to terms with the fact that this vehicle does particular things, and some feel really good. Some feel quite bad. Others feel in between. But to slowly but surely develop this sense of, it is not me. There's a me in there that's different, that is totally unaffected by all that. And then life starts to become a little bit calmer. But I still have bad days. It's not that I'm some sort of guru who doesn't feel bad days anymore. It's like, no, I feel sad. I feel anxious. I feel depressed every now and then. That's what life is. But we can deal with that better, more effectively over time, once we stop connecting ourselves with that, if that makes sense. It's not us. It's a process that's taken place that I'm affected by, but it's not me.
Yes, a billion times to that truth.
Right. Okay.
That truth. Yeah, I know it's a type of conversation that, for some people it might sound abstract because they're very identified with the processes, right, of the organism, of the body, mind. But then even the question of I don't like it, when you said, the body's doing this, the mind is doing this, I don't like it. Who is saying that I don't like this? Because we are not located. What we are, it's non-localized. So it's not an entity in the first place. So it's
No.
it's a free, and free meaning not even a concept of freedom. It's just what's happening, it is happening. It's like almost like in nature. I look at a tree. Can you imagine a tree complaining about, too much rain? Oh, my leaves are falling. What's happening here? Can you imagine
Yeah.
for all nature starts to complain about things?
Or being stuck in one spot for 150 years. Like, are you kidding? It's like,
What's
that
going
type of
on
stuff.
here? So it doesn't
Yeah.
happen, and we are nature too, but we have this very strange ability to rationalize our existence, and that's where suffering, the concept, the idea of suffering comes from, because we are something in us, and it obviously is the mind, right? Because the mind's a tool. It's a very powerful tool. I mean, to me, it's a gift, to be to have this ability of recognizing itself as the concept of freedom. Wait a minute, I'm free. I'm not attached to anything. I'm none of this. Yet I can still feel things. This is so interesting. I mean, this is how I go about these days. Like, this is quite amazing. But then at some point I get caught again with the feeling sad about certain things when I see poverty, the abuse of children and animal, all those things. And then something in me almost becomes identified, consciousness again, that freedom part identifies with what's happening too closely, and now creates an attachment. That's what it is, basically, because what we are, there's nowhere to be found, and it's not really, it's not a thing, it's not an object. So
That's what I talk about with clients mostly, and you see that in the teachings of a guy like Michael Singer, for instance. If we were able to just experience life the way it is, sometimes really good, sometimes really bad, and there wouldn't be any remnants of that. It would. Then it's just an ongoing experience. Sometimes you feel great, sometimes you don't. But based on what we feel, we say, "Oh, that great stuff, I want to keep. I want to have more of that."
That's the
and
attachment.
that bad stuff,
that's holding
get that out of me. I don't want that anymore. And then we start trying to manipulate the future in a way in order to have that happen. That's where it goes wrong. And that's when we start to develop these attachments to, well, I need a lot of money, or I want a lot of friends, or I want a lot of toys, but I don't want physical illness, and I don't want depression either, and I don't want heartache, because and then we start to kind of hold up all these shields and protective mechanisms, or these desires to flow, and life just doesn't work that way. And that becomes practical when you work with people, for instance, with depression, anxiety, trauma as well. If you work with people with trauma, because I do that too, they have gone through stuff that was absolutely horrible. It's like, you can't deny that. But then, but because of this body, mind, and the body keeps the score, like, you can't help it. It starts kind of nearly forecasting their future. And then the whole process is, well, we have to work with the body. The body needs to kind of let go of that stuff too. And you can do that with EMDR and whatever else you can do that with. But it's a combined process. Just to go like, hey, you're a free soul, don't worry about it. That doesn't work. It's combined, body, mind, spirit. And I think that's where the work comes in for many people, depending on the approach you feel. It's like, we are still human. The body still reacts, the mind still reacts to stuff, but you can work with that, that bio, psychosocial, spiritual stuff, and attack it from all sorts of angles, not in order to then form a new attachment to say, well, I need therapy in order to fix all this. It's like, no, that becomes a new attachment. But if you're really willing to say, look, I want to be free of my past still influencing my future, then we can work with that. And you can use evidence-based approaches on that. Absolutely. But you can also look at that higher order perspective and say, whether it's from a Buddhist perspective, from a Vedanta perspective, or from whatever perspective, and say, hey, who are you really? And let's start looking at that. Because part of you is always totally unaffected by what goes around you.
Yes.
And if you just become quiet in the moment,
Yes.
nothing is wrong.
Right.
And you go, like, that's just a really weird realization that if you think now and just breathe now, then there is no future, there is no past. And then right here, right now, there's nothing wrong. It's like, that's odd. That's an odd one.
That's the truth. You see, but that's just fascinating how, yes, I absolutely agree, because I remember having all these highly sophisticated spiritual concepts and really doing hours of meditation and being this space of peace. I mean, I could recognize and see, wait a minute, this is what I am. But then when I would go back to my relationships, in my daily life, and then the body would just do, like you said, what it does. And then whatever was imprinted in the body and the mind, memories, would just come back. And then I didn't know what to do. I'm like, oh no. And it still happens, of course, from time to time. It tries to come back. But because I have these practices in place and I'm always going back to them, this untouched place that that's not even a placeless place anyway, it's not localized. So it's just this sensing that, wait a minute, like you just said, I am free here now. There's nothing, there's just this happening, this body doing what it does. How fascinating. And then something happens, you can feel it. The whole body can experience the flavor of that freedom. And then the more I do, the more I practice that. It's almost like the body scan. I do yoga nidra too, a lot of this practice. And then the more it seems like there's up here, the understanding of the intellect about Vedanta teachings and all, they're becoming more like embodied. The body's accepting now, like going back to acceptance. It's not just that we have to accept with our minds, we have to accept with the body too. So I noticed that the body, the more I do engage with the practice of, the body, not body scan, I do the body scan too, but it's more like a reflection and contemplation of the here and now, which is not really the present moment, because the present moment doesn't exist either. Although we use the word the now and, Eckhart Tolle and all these concepts, well, there's not even now, because the now is already the past, isn't it? And then there's not even such a thing. So it's the timeless, really. So once we are in the timeless, it really happens like a miracle, when I think about the Course. It really is. And then love arises, this feeling of love for life. And then joy arises. And then everything that's kind of you thought was, was not possible, not there, it just starts to come to visit. And one of these days, funny enough, they just come and stay. So it's been my experience.
That's the hope. Yeah, that's the hope, and that would be my hope for myself and everyone else as well.
Yeah.
But try and tell that to someone who's just been through a majorly traumatic experience, and they probably will want to slap you in the face, because that's not what they're experiencing at that point. Hey, and that's that journey that I think as a practitioner I'm hoping to make with people, and say, not that I'm better in whatever way, shape, or form. Is like, okay, let's clear all that stuff up. Let's clear all those bodily blockages, those brain blockages. Your brain has not processed this properly, so it's stuck somewhere in the neurobiology. That will affect your sense of self for sure. So you got to work on all those. That's my perspective anyway. You got to work on all those elements. The mind, your thoughts, your emotions, the bodily expressions of that. But then also based on who do you think you are and what would you like to do in the world that's different. And then you can start putting it in. And then ideally, yes. Then we start to have more of those moments where we go like, actually, today's pretty good. I'm feeling quite all right at the moment. It's like, that's weird. It's like, yeah, cool. That's really good. Keep adding those moments in there. And then your brain is just an evidence collecting machine anyway. So the more evidence it starts collecting of things being okay, the more chances you have of experiencing more things that are okay. And then it becomes fun. It's like, man, I'm getting this. It's like, yeah, cool. That's awesome. Let's work towards that. But there's a broad spectrum, hey. And again, that's what we talked about in the beginning. There's a broad spectrum of people that will only look in the spirituality side of stuff and the esoterics for answers, and they might find it. And then there's people that say, nah, that's now what we need to keep looking at this more evidence-based stuff, because that's where science says things work. I firmly believe in that bridge. Is like, nah, just let's together look at what works for you, and let's apply that. And I'm happy to provide my opinion on that one, but yours is more important because it's ultimately your life. So whatever you believe, that goes. But if you're interested in what I have to say about that, I'm quite happy to share. And then we can set something really nice up as client and counselor and work with that. But the question will always be, is it working? Is it making a difference for you? Because if it is, let's keep going. If it doesn't work, we have to change tack. Because otherwise it's useless. And you'll just become another person, go like, I've had 5 therapists already, and it's like, no real improvements. Like, that's not good. If it doesn't work, then we might as well stop, because then I'm not the right person, or what we're doing is not the right way to go, or we just have to look at another way of doing it.
Right.
So always, is this working? Does it create an effect for you that you want?
Yes.
That's always a big question.
Yes. That's 1,000,000,000% true, that we, in a sense, we create a reality, right? You probably heard about that. So you speak of people who look for therapy, the science of it, the part of life, evidence-based, and then people with spirituality only. And then those who are not interested in any of it. None of it.
Yeah.
None of it. Zero.
Yep.
So they're just kind of living, I don't know, operating from moment to moment to, or whatever, like you said, it works for them. And maybe that's why suffering is really a tough one, right, to tap into, like the world collective suffering, because there are way too many minds and bodies that are operating its own, in its own way. But I do feel and sense that, from my own experience, that there is a way, though, of tapping into this understanding, at least becoming curious, about something. How rare is something that comes and goes? We are not going to be here for too long. It doesn't last long, this experience. So I start very much with that when I think about, tapping into the depth of life and trying to solve this issue of our own suffering. Become curious about how transient this is, how impermanent the experiences are. Everything's just coming and going. We will come and go as bodies too. And some people believe in reincarnation, that they will live, the mind will continue and then will live again. And there are some evidence for that, I guess, right? There are some evidence, but we don't know. We don't know. So I rely on what's happening here and now. This very moment. This is what matters to me. Like this very moment. Not tomorrow,
Absolutely.
not the past, this. And that's it.
Yeah.
Not next life, nothing. So because that's what matters. You spoke of, you said beautifully about heaven and earth. I think you mentioned in your bio too. Isn't it, Mark? We can make heaven now just by being fully present, in this moment, and kind of coming from love. Letting love and joy kind of rise from that peaceful place that we are. I really feel that way. We can just live from that place. And that's why I keep doing this. I can't help it but having these conversations and kind of expand these platforms. Because there's something
I believe you, and I believe that too. But I'm also realist enough to say, okay, my conceptual belief in it's possible to do that, but also my realism attitude that says for many people, they just find it impossible to do that. And I think that's why I'm in this work, because if I didn't believe that it's possible to be happier than we are now, to have this sense of life is okay, then why would I do this? And it's as a counselor, I always find I'm riding that or I'm walking that ladder between the people that say, nah, it sounds like a really nice idea, but that's not my experience. And the people that go like, yeah, man, I really believe that. I want to do more of that. I hold on to my belief, but I have to go with a person's reality. If they don't experience love in their life, or if they don't experience happiness in their life for whatever reason, I can't just say, she'll be right. Typical Australian expression, like, we'll be okay, just focus on the love and everything will be okay. No,
Yeah.
that doesn't work. Yeah, but we can, because I do believe that it is possible. We can start to take steps on the ladder and maybe climb a couple of rungs towards that. And if that's the improvement that these people make, and that's as much time as we'll have together, then I still feel useful, because at least, I've helped them in that sense. But some people will just not get it. I hear of people's stories and go like, oh my God. No, they will in this lifetime probably not experience any of that, because they've just drawn a real bad hand of cards. And the cards are just not working for them, and they cannot win this game. And that's what you can work with as well. At least you can help them to make their suffering less pronounced potentially. And if that's everything I can do, then I'm still okay with that, because that still helped. That still was useful. But some people, man, is like, they go through tough lives, and I always go, man, I need to stop complaining about my own life. If I hear those stories, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, I mean, I'm completely blessed, in many ways, compared to other people's stories. And there's plenty of that on the world as well. If you just look at refugees and people just going through, I don't know, earthquakes and fires and whatever else, and losing everything, it's like, wow, yeah. It's a tough concept to see. It's like, no, everything's love, everything's okay. Just be present. Even though I believe that, but that's not what they're at. And we have to approach them from where they're at, and then work from that point. That's how I see it anyway.
Yes.
Again, what works? Does it work for them? Not does it work for me, and therefore I'm going to teach you that. No, does it work from them? And can I help you with lifting yourself up a little bit? That's what counseling is to me.
Yeah. That's what you're saying. It's beautiful that you have this understanding, and you kind of, in a way, seems like you sat on it, which I would hope not, because I love the idea that we can be open. That has been my experience coming from PTSD, complex PTSD, and trauma, hard stuff. So we don't want to compare like levels of suffering, because it has to do with sensitivity, how sensitive you are. Sometimes something small could traumatize you. And, for some people, it takes something big to really traumatize them. And for some children, like in my case, when I was a child, being traumatized the way I was, physical, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, in that sense too. So all kinds of experiences that led to this kind of led me here. Why do you think I'm doing this? It's almost like a therapist. I love therapists, and I talk to them all the time, and then they say, that's the reason you do this, huh? Because that's why I became curious, because wait a minute, if I'm not open to life, to kind of the wholeness of life, I'll be just living parts of life. And parts of life means fragmented living, splitted kind of living. We wanted to kind of be open. And to me, that's the only way we can heal. It has been my experience with healing and kind of bringing those two together. But I had to be open, though. I had to be very curious and open. And I think most people are not. And that's why they kind of get stuck, and they are still living fragmented lives, because they are not, somebody like me who comes from really, really complex PTSD and traumatic, horrible traumatic experiences. It's, horrible, I say, for the level of sensitivity too. Of course, I went through horrible things, but it's, I have been always very sensitive to everything. So it was so much harder. So, and then it's almost like as a survival mechanism, I had to be open. I had to. I had no other option. I had to accept. I had to just explore kinds of spiritualities, Zen, Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Christianity, and then ended up with Vedanta. But now I'm still open with even Islam. I really like. You probably heard about Sufism. It's so beautiful. Oh, I love, just about love. And some people actually, they are now open to that. I like you said, some people are just so close in their own suffering. It's almost like a bird that is in a little cage with the door open. because we are
Yeah.
free already. Why are you staying in? But some people just still, they're so identified with the, the pain of the body and the mind that they just stay there with the door open. It's like a bird with an open cage. And
Yep.
I was like that for a long time. And then I
Yeah.
just said, wait a minute. And that's why I have these platforms, because I believe that, somebody like you, I speak to so many therapists. I love them. I have to say I love therapists and anybody with a message that can, that somebody could become curious. And perhaps by listening to me and you, they might just go. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a coach or anything like that. So they cannot come to me anyway. So I'm not selling my service because I don't have one. But they might go for you, for help, or perhaps they will hear one thing, one little phrase, you're already free, that might kind of spark that flame of searching for, for freedom, because it's not really something to search for, but curiosity will kind of turn the mind around. Like
Yeah.
in Sufism, they talk about turning the heart around, and then like you see yourself, and then you're like, wait, it's like the eye seeing the eyes, like, because we can't see the eyes really, the eye cannot see the eye, but that can happen with consciousness, with what we are. We can just
Yep.
wait a minute, I'm already free. Where have I been? But it's not even an eye, and then the eye drops, and now it's just the experience of being here, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing left but just this, whatever this is, which I
Well,
don't
yeah, I
even
was going
know.
to say,
The unknown.
we're here anyway, so
Yeah.
you might as well experience it. Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
it.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I want to mention your website, and I want to mention your services, of course. So simplifyinglife.com.au, and you have individual counseling. You work with organizations, counseling, supervision, one-on-one, 15-minute complimentary session if somebody wants to talk to you. That'll be amazing, Mark. I love that when
Yep.
therapists or coaches, they offer a little bit, like the initial conversation.
Yeah,
And
it's
then,
it's a short initial session, but it's like at least we get an idea whether I could be the right person, or whether I can actually work with you, because maybe what I do doesn't align with what you're looking for,
right.
and then I'm not the right fit. So it's, sure, I want to sell my services, but I don't want to sell it at any cost. So we need to be a right fit.
Right, right. So I like that you have that. I also want to mention that you have the Simplifying Life products shop. And you
Sure.
have ebooks, you have the audio downloads. I really like that. I love the title though. Build Better Habits. This is something that's really, if you speak of evidence-based, change your
Yep.
habits, change your life. That's so true. And
Yeah.
then you have emotional intelligence, pre-recorded workshop, and you have heart balance exercise. I love that. And then finding your flow. You have a lot more, but these are the ones that caught my attention by the title. I think it's just
Yeah, cool.
inviting,
Yeah.
titles. And then you have a blog too. So you have a lot of mental health resources. I really like the 6 practical ways to strengthen your emotional health. And then you have 8 practical ways to strengthen your resilience too. And I really like your YouTube channel. That's something else that you have. You have
Yeah, my
a
good
lot
old
of
YouTube channel.
resources.
Yeah.
You're really
Yeah.
trying to help others, Mark. That's really
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's, you know what, that's, I think I'm in that game, Valeria. Otherwise,
Yes.
I should have stayed a lawyer. It's,
Yes, it's
that would have
beautiful.
been the more profitable option, but this is the more fulfilling option. So it's, I like this a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially also teaching at uni, just getting the next generation of counselors and psychologists up to date with what's going on. How fun is that? It's just leveraging, whatever I do and know into the next generation of people, and hopefully they can do the same thing and will make a bigger difference. It's like, that's what it's all about. Yeah, treat others like you want to be treated. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I don't know. That's a choiceless choice in a way, like transitioning from being a lawyer to being
Yeah.
a counselor. It seems like it was a hard choice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long story, but it was a very, very hard based, not very intellectually based choice. Very much a hard based one,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that it kind of fell on my path, because I was looking for something that was more aligned, and then the universe conspires to put things on your path. That's very spiritual, but it seemed like a very natural step, and it's one that I still embrace. even law is a helping profession. But in law, there's often, especially if you work in civil practice, which I did, there's always someone who loses or doesn't get what they want. And that never really felt good. Whereas in counselling and mental health, the worst thing that can happen is that people don't change. So their situations are not worse. It's just that they don't change.
Right.
I can live with that. Yeah, if that's the worst case scenario, I can live with that. Right. But most of the time, people do change for the better a little bit. And so there's no downsides. It's a win-win scenario. Whereas in law, it's often a win-lose scenario, and that loss element, I've never set well with me for some reason. So it's like, nah, this is the better side for me anyway. It suits me.
Right. I love that.
Yep.
So you speak of the heart, but it seems like the alignment again. So that's mind, heart, and soul. And that's what it really takes, isn't it? And once we align, there's no more split. There's no more fragmented living. Now we know. And that's why my main interest has been freedom. And it doesn't really matter how it happens. It could be through coaching, through therapy, through spiritual understandings, you name it. I think we need all the help that we can get, right? To get.
Amen to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much again for your beautiful presence. And in the conversation, I know it's not, I made my notes here. I had a lot of other things to mention, but I love being in the moment and more spontaneous and kind of being true to what has been true in my own life and kind of passing that on to somehow. And smuggling some of that freedom understanding here. Although a lot of people, they might think, oh, she's happy for this. No. There's a lot of suffering that went, that just the body mind has experienced. But there's like also this element of curiosity and openness. And I always go back to it as my main kind of teachers, being open,
like that.
being curious.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And then at the end of the conversation, Marc, would you like to add anything that you left unsaid or any messages, anything that you want to say at the end?
Keep looking for what works for you. As in not you, Valeria, but for people. Keep looking what works for you. If it's your religion, dive into your religion. If it's evidence-based practice, dive into evidence-based practice. If it's spirituality and esoterics, do that. But ideally, do a little bit of everything. Just taste from the buffet. Don't go like, oh no, I'm an ex-Catholic. I don't do that anymore. It's like, why not? The Bible might have really cool things to say about something that could help. Or it's like, oh no, all that evidence-based stuff that has got nothing to do with real life. Like, why not? It's like it's people that have studied that. So be willing. I use the word willingness quite often. It's just be willing to taste from the buffet, try things out. Because that's something I have found. There is not one thing that will work for everybody. There are many things that will work for many people. And some of the bits and pieces from some and some of the bits and pieces from others can create this beautiful combination for you that seems to work. It's like, well, look for that. So always keep looking. And my own personal belief is never give up hope. There's always something possible. And no, it might not be full-blown happiness and whatever it is that you're looking for. But even if you can relieve an element of your suffering so it's not as bad as it was before, that's still good enough. That's still good. So keep looking and never give up hope.
Yes, yeah, I love that. Yeah, it translates into the same thing about being open, right, Marc? Yeah. To me, that's sacred. Yeah, there's something when we are willing to do that, right? To be, and I love what you said about the buffet. Yeah, trying to just try it, right? Just try it, like that. Thank you so much for your beautiful presence and for your work, in this reality, this shared reality. And we'll be in touch again. We'll talk again. I'll talk to you off record, actually, Marc. I'll be here. I'm just gonna end it for the record, but I'll talk to you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Valeria. Cheers.